God's kingdom spreads in subtle ways over time. I think that's the point of the leaven. Why do you want to not judge it prematurely? Because you can't see all the ways it's working. Right? We tend towards a flash in the pan sort of faith. And that's why we wonder, why is he waiting? Just blow something up. That's literally the disciples' question. You want to call down fire? So we want shock and awe. We want explosions. But what Jesus says in answer to that, rather than going, okay, because he can blow stuff up, he says that sometimes people get into the kingdom slowly and quietly, like a lump of dough set aside with a little bit of leaven in it. I've shared before, one of the first times I got to pray with someone to accept Christ, it was a really anticlimactic conversion story. I knew this kid didn't know Jesus. He came to me as I was his counselor at camp, and it was just day one, could tell, doesn't know a thing about Jesus. And so we're having Bible studies, and I'm just hoping he'd ask questions. I'm looking for that, movie moment where we have the deep heart-to-heart, and I win this kid to Jesus. And we just had really good devotionals every day as a team. The other kids who were Christians all jumped in and had a blast, and he just kind of listened on the side. And I didn't get any read from his face that anything was happening. And I was burdened for this kid. And I remember even staying after at firesides to pray for him, just going like, something's got to happen. And the last day of camp, he just walks up to me. And he says, I've been listening to you guys and all the Bible studies and the way you talk about God and the way you have a relationship with him. And I want that. Caught me totally flat-footed because there was nothing blew up. It was just matter of fact. And so then I'm like stammering, trying to like figure out how to get back on script. And so I'm like, but sin separates us from the relationship. So we need to be forgiven. He's like, yeah, I understand. I'm a sinner. Christ died for my sins. I need to be forgiven. And I want that. He's like way out ahead of me. And I'm sitting there like, so I remember I'm like trying to get, okay, so he gets sin, he gets forgiveness, he gets the cross. And so I was just like, well, I think you should tell him. And he says, okay. I said, do you want me to lead you in a prayer? He says, no, I think I got it. And he kneels down and he just confesses his sins and asks Jesus to save him right there on the spot. And I'm sitting there going like, what just happened? Slowly, quietly, invisibly, the leaven of the gospel sitting in a bunch of other campers and his counselor just got into him and was getting in there and spreading and multiplying, and it finally arrived at critical mass, and he just came into the kingdom. And the most overwhelming thing to me was how underwhelming my role was. I was just a bystander as God got somebody saved. It just oozed out, and he saved him. And I remember being struck by that because we want the story where I said the thing and he was moved with conviction, he tore his clothes and wept. And God does that. There's scriptures for that. But then there's also this where Jesus looks at a bunch of people resisting and says, don't prejudge this. You don't know how many people in that crowd that looks like they're all rejecting me are quietly listening. And the gospel's soaking in. And it's like that dough that looks like it's just a little bit of leaven in there. And it was just a little bit of leaven. And then surprise, it's everywhere. It got the whole lump. And so he puts this picture of, this is one of the ways the gospel spreads. Jesus says sometimes people get brought into the kingdom slowly and quietly, like a lump of dough set aside with a little leaven in it. Are you up for leaven-style faith? The kind that grows through consistency over time. Through quiet devotion to him, to his body, the church, and to his gospel. Who are those people you've just been tempted to give up on because they know you, they know about your faith, you've said the things you knew to say, and they are still rejecting him? Don't give up. They're not out of reach of the kingdom. That's what this parable says. Don't discount that and don't give up. Don't stop. Maybe it's your spiritual disciplines, or maybe it's our church. You struggle with the idea of just a quiet consistency.